The 5 P's of success. We're going to discuss it on this edition of the Pest Geek Podcast.
Pull out your hose and grab your can. We're about to integrate another Pest Geek Podcast. Hi, everybody. Frank Hernandez here, and welcome to the Pest Geek Podcast, bringing you the latest information on pests, products, and politics from today's leading industry sources to help you start, manage, and grow your pest control business.
Hey, welcome back. Welcome back to this edition of the Pest Geek Podcast. I am your host, Frank Hernandez, discussing all things pest. Hey, we're going to be discussing the 5 P's of every successful business, a very successful person, a very successful organization. And man, have I was not the most organized person in the world when I started in business, in my business career, my sales career. I was very young. I started working. I was already working by the time I was 10 years old in a supermarket stacking shelves. Most of you who are, old enough, would probably be working in a farm, by the time you were 10 or 11. Today, most kids will probably start working when they're 18. Just a lot of things have changed. But I worked, my first boss, I worked for myself, probably when I was 16, 17. And then I went and got a job, a job, just something that just kept me just over broke. So I went to go work for a large, one of the largest truck rental companies, in the planet. And, since I knew a lot about cars and trucks and parts, I got a job as an assistant in a shop and running in the parts department. And within 6 months of that, I got promoted to assistant manager. And within 6 months of that, I was already, because I was going to school for IT, and I was already IT certified, and I got offered the job to be the systems analyst for the company. And talk about going from starting out at nothing, and within a year and a half, you're running the systems for like 20 stores. But my first boss did me a great favor. Both of them were former military. Both were actually former Air Force. And one was going to be a pilot. Later, he became, he wanted to join the police, and he became a detective and captain. And very, very structured individual. And he took me by the hand, and he says, Frank, these are the things that we do, and this is how we do it. And what I need you to do is I need you to take a pad and pencil and write down everything you got to do every day. That was my first introduction to organization. Write it down. Whatever you don't get done today, that's the first thing on tomorrow morning. Mind you, I was, 17, I think 18 years old, at the time. And, I was the assistant store manager. And he took me by the hand and taught me how to become organized, how to follow up, how to lead people, how to, talk to people, and how to, we were running a crew for about 15 employees. And I understood the 5 P's early on. Later, as I got older in my career and I went into larger organizations and worked on larger accounts and teams, I understood the 5 P's. And they're very simple. The 5 P's of success are this: people, process, policies, procedures will get you a great product. If the first 4, you got a hiccup in the first 4, your product is going to suck. The end product is going to be mediocre. You can have a great product, a great service, a great offering. And if your people suck, that product sucks. It doesn't matter. And one of the things that I've learned in being in this business and listening to people is the lack of the first 4 in this industry. And I'm not talking about you and I that are the individual, and a lot of the solo operators are, well, the reason they're solo is because they're freaking meticulous. Nothing is ever good enough. Nobody's ever good enough for them. It's kind of like, this is my baby, and you will never be good enough to marry her. There is no such thing as a guy out there good enough to marry the baby. But we understand that if those of us that want to grow, those of us that are growing and are growing our business, need to understand that you're going to have to inevitably, implement the 5 P's, whether you want to or not. You're going to have to learn how to hire the best people. You're going to have to make a lot of mistakes in hiring in order to figure out how to properly hire. There is no shortcut. There is nobody that's going to take away that pain. But the way you alleviate the pain, and I learned this early on, and it's to have clear policies, processes, especially processes. We're very good at knowing everything in our head. We're terrible at communicating it to other people. We're terrible at, we want people, the biggest problem that I've ever had working for small business people, and you will have the same problem and I have the same problem, is we expect people to read our minds. And we will explain it 3 or 4 times, and if they haven't figured it out, we get very impatient with people. By trade, and I tell people, my biggest thing is that I'm a troubleshooter, by trade and by personality. Okay, that's just the way I'm wired. I'm a troubleshooter. I find things that are wrong. I find things that are wrong that nobody's seeing. I'm terrible. Sometimes I'm seeing them in myself. It's kind of like the old proverb. But I'm a troubleshooter. I look for problems. And by looking for problems, I aggravate a lot of people because I'm pointing out things that are wrong all the time. And I've learned how to do that, But when I was younger, it was, I'm looking at programs. I'm looking at code. I'm looking at installations. I'm looking at things. And sometimes I make the mistake and I go back and I had to fix it because I realized that wasn't what I was supposed to do. But having clear protocols, processes, I still to this day will flowchart everything. Just the way I'm wired. I'll sit in my whiteboard and I flowchart it. If this happens, then this. If this happens, then this. If this, then that. And I physically, mentally, that's how I have to do my process. I have 1-page protocols written out for every pest problem that we have and how to solve it, with our protocols, with the products, with everything in it. And all people have to do is follow that procedure, and it works. I had an episode over the summer that we had gotten into an increase in callbacks due to one little insect that has become the major insect this year, which I've been dealing with it for a long time, but now we're taking on clients where they've had 4 or 5 companies and people trying to solve this problem and made it worse. And we're taking these difficult clients on, and we're getting an enormous amount of follow-ups that we have to do to get it fixed. And I had to change my processes, my own processes that I developed. I had to shoot some of those in the head to deal with this problem and upgrade it and change the way we do it in order to that we don't have those callbacks. So we went to almost to a 5% callback in 1 month. And I said, unacceptable. We got to go back out there and nip this in the butt right now. Well, for the last 3 months, we're back to 1%. And so it's important to do that. And it's important to have an organization that is flexible to do that. That policies and procedures only make sense if the policies and procedures make sense. I don't know if you're following me. A lot of people make policies that don't make sense. They did at one time. The policy's outdated. I just to give you an example, I went to go work for a national T-shirt maker. They were used to selling. The manufacturer is the world's largest maker of transferences. And transfers are the ones that are used, when you go to the mall and you want a T-shirt made and it's right there and they press it in front of you. These were like world class. I mean, you couldn't tell the difference between this process and the stuff that is printed on a 5-color press or a 16-color press. You couldn't tell the difference. This is how good they were, and they lasted just as long. And they had one department that sold to ministries and sold to churches and sold to bookstores, and the problem is the stores were notoriously for being late payers. And I sold to camps, and we sold to camps all over the country, and T-shirts, and they never sold custom printing, and they couldn't figure out why they weren't selling. They couldn't get the stores to buy. Well, they were using the same policies that they had, rigid policies that they had with their stores. The problem is camps paid. They didn't have a record of camps not paying. And I said, you need to have a good, healthy loss. And this is difficult for people to understand, healthy loss. 1% to 3% loss a year in bad debt, and when you're extending credit, is not really bad. You can absorb that. It was 0. And I said, you need to loosen up your credit policy. Your credit policy is too rigid. Camps don't operate that way. They operate on a seasonal basis. They make their purchases one time, they pay it off, and they're done for the season. It's not a recurring thing all year long, unless you're a huge camp and you have like this huge mega store. So I had to convince them to raise the credit limit and loosen the policy on how they required a camp to carry a D&B. I mean, a Dun & Bradstreet. Which camp carried a Dun & Bradstreet? I mean, it was ridiculous. The policies didn't make sense. I'm a salesperson, and I'm always in sales mode, pitching something, an idea, a concept. The process didn't make sense. Second, their ordering system, they had to realize they needed to customize a line for these people because they had custom needs. They never did that before. So we created a custom catalog because it needed to be easy to order. We were trying to sell full 5-color process, and camps didn't have either the knowledge or the ability to manage that. So we created simple designs they could pick, and we could customize them. Drop your name here kind of deal. And all of this, I created it within 6 months that I was there, to the point where we sold so many t-shirts to the camps that they said, we're booked for the entire month of August. The presses are booked. We can't do it. They never had done it before. And so it's about having processes and policies that make sense. So if you're going to have a policy, one of our policies, to give you an example, is that every time you go into a house, you have to wear booties, shoe protectors. It's a policy. It's written in stone. You can't change it. Well, I forgot. Why didn't you wear your booties? I forgot. Why didn't you? I forgot. I didn't have time. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. When we're in the sales process, by the way, Mr. Customer, when he goes in the house, all of our technicians have to wear booties to protect your floor. And if he doesn't, well, he gets fined. So please make sure, we don't want our technicians to get fined. Have them wear their booties. Insist that they walk into your house with booties. Please don't feel bad. When we call back, guess what? People are wearing their booties. It's simple. The policies have to make sense. They're there to protect the client, and things like this that we need to look at. In procedures, here's the typical company that's growing. They hire ready-made techs, and one tech has 25 years experience. One guy has 2 years, and the tech that has 25 years doesn't have to adhere to the same procedures because, he's been there for 20 years or whatever, or he feels he has more seniority, he feels he has more experience, and he's exempt from following the rules that everybody has to follow. That's a people problem. That falls into the first P. You hired the wrong person, or that person needs to understand that it doesn't matter if he's got 25 years, he's part of a team. It's funny how we have all these people in this industry who are sports fans, who love professional sports, and they have no concept of team in this industry. It's almost like Lone Rangers working for companies, and everybody does whatever they want. And you got a big problem on your hand when you don't have protocol, policies, and procedures in place that let people know that when you come to work here, you got to follow the rules. We have rules. We have processes. You can't just, I know, but I've been doing this for 20 years. I don't care if you've been doing it for 20 years. Our system works. It's kind of like you going into Subway and saying, tomorrow it's Taco Tuesdays at Subway. I'm sorry, we don't sell tacos. You do now because, I came in here and I know more about tacos than anybody, and we're changing the menu. And Subway headquarters is going to call and say, that guy, you need to stop him. It's not going to happen. We're not going to sell tacos at Subway. We're a sandwich shop. They have protocols, policies that make them a very good brand. That's what's going to get you a predictable, reliable service. When everybody is talking the same language, everybody's doing the same thing. You're saying, I disagree with you, Frank. I disagree with you because there is no one way to solve a roach problem. And I say, I'll disagree with you. You're wrong. There is one best way to solve a roach problem. And Taylor would disagree with you. You need to look at Taylor's scientific management. You know why? Because people have not changed in 100 years. We have not evolved. As a matter of fact, we're not smarter now than we were 100 years ago. Oh my God, somebody's gasping. You mean we're not smarter? No, we're not. I'll prove it to you. Crime rates are at an all-time high, yet we have more education on crime and news than any time in history. We have the World Wide Web, which everything you could ever want to know is on there. Yet we're number 16 in education in the world. We spend more money on education than any other country in the world, and yet we're 13, 14, 15, and 16 in math and sciences in the world. You prove to me that with the divorce rate that we have, we're smarter today than we were 100 years ago. With the crime rate we have, with the student dropout rate that we have, with the unwed mother that we have, knowing that you have a child outside of wedlock, you're going to suffer more. Tell me that we're smarter than we were 100 years ago. Prove it to me. We have more technology and more information. Information and technology is not intelligence. You still have to interpret the data, and you have to apply it. So look at Taylor's scientific management of figuring out the one best way of doing something and start implementing that. Because here's what will happen. Start hiring 4 or 5 people. You no longer have time to jump in a truck with some guy. You're saying today you guys are the new guy. You're gonna learn with Joe, and tomorrow with Alex, and the next day you're gonna sit with Brad. And everybody's doing it different. And the poor guy has no idea who he's supposed to follow. And what he's gonna learn is I'll just have to figure it out on my own and do it my own way because that's the way this company. There's just a bunch of cowboys. Because people in this industry is the only industry I've ever been in that I've seen so much of that. I'm telling you, I'm horrified. I mean, can you imagine the electrician saying, no, it doesn't really matter what color you use. When that inspector comes in and says, no, you're going to have to rewire that. That's wrong. Hospitals have protocols, policies, and procedures. Can you imagine you called Amazon without any protocol, policies, and procedures, and your order got there 3 weeks late? You'd be horrified. There is one best way to do something. You got to find it. We believe we have one of the best ways of doing what we do based on what we talk to other people, saying, listen, we're not growing as fast as everybody. But I understood that I one time I used to grow at neck break speed everything. And I've learned that I can't. That you have to take your time to build something. The companies that are growing really fast are experiencing just tremendous HR nightmares. Quality is suffering. People are doing whatever they want. Managers can't. You know what the most pathetic thing I could ever hear from a manager? And this is gonna take a lot of people off, but I'm good at that. I'm kind of like an electric cattle prod. When I hear this on a daily basis, I will never get my people to do that. At one point, you got to stop yourself right there. Stop yourself right there when you say, I can't get my people. I will never get my people to do that. My people will not do that. You have to look at yourself in the mirror and say, I'm an utter failure as a leader and a manager. I can't get my people to do that. At that point, you need to find somebody who can and hire a manager, and you decide to focus on business growth, which is what you're good at. Focus on something else and hire a manager that can. Because that's the most pathetic thing I've ever heard in my life. I can't get my people to do that. And I hear that at least a dozen times a week from people in conversations. Because you know why? You never had protocols, policies, and procedures. You allowed everybody to create their own work environment, their own way, because you didn't do it at the beginning. And now it's too hard to turn that ship around and tell everybody, I'm going to tighten up. I'm going to really crack down around here. And that's going to be a tough ship to turn around. So you really, people, processes. There's a process in what we're doing. Whenever we come across a problem, what's the process for solving that problem? What is the modus operandi of thinking to solve that problem? Are you creating an environment of collaboration, or creating an environment where people are lone rangers and nobody's collaborating? That's what we need to look at. If we want to be the small companies, our biggest challenge is attracting and maintaining quality people. That's our biggest challenge. I just put an ad out on Indeed for a part-time assistant trainee. That's what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for a technician. I don't want a technician. I don't want somebody else's headache. I've seen what's out there. I don't want it. We've got 38 applicants in one day. This is for one project that we're doing, that we have to hire 2 people for this contract that we got. It's a 2-year contract, guaranteed, and we have to get the 2 people to do this. And they're going to do 1 to 2 things. That's it. I don't need a technician. I want to train the people from the ground up. It's 38 applicants in one day for this job. A part-time job. We had requirements in there that they had to meet. Because I have a protocol, policy, and procedure in place that I can train a guy to do what we're going to do, and that's it. That's all they're doing. The goal is to move them up from there later when the contract is over, and keeping them and putting them into a different mentality. But that's what we looked for. Because if I put that I needed a technician, I would get inundated with people that have 10 years experience that are going to come and tell me how to run my company when they have no clue what we do here. Understand that the market in Miami, knowing what we do and how we do it, it's like less than 1% of the people can do it. We're very specialized by design, by intent, by product, by policy, process, procedure. And what people are going to think is, Frank, if I do that, we're going to be a very rigid. I don't want to be like the company I left. Most of the time you left because you quit your manager, you quit the organization because the organization was in chaos. Order produces order. If not, let's look at our military. Can you imagine a military without order? Can you imagine a police force without order? Can you imagine first responders without order, without policy, without procedures? Can you imagine the chaos? No, most of the time we left because our companies that we left were just, behaved like crap. So it's not large organizations. I do work for FAA facilities that are 6-man operations, and they run that like if it was Boeing. They have to. Parts break down, planes go down. Very, very strict policies and procedures. They're a 6-man company. It will allow people to operate with more autonomy by having policies and procedures, because they know where the guidelines are. They know where the lines are drawn. They know how far they can go before they need to ask for help. It reduces bottleneck. Nothing worse than micromanagement, where everybody has to come to you to get the next step. That is demoralizing. Most people run their businesses that way. When you have clear protocol, policies, and procedure, you don't need to call me. As long as you operate within these guidelines, you're good. If it doesn't work, then you call me. Clear definition of what needs to be done. So don't be intimidated by this, because a lot of people are, I didn't leave corporate America and I didn't leave, went out on my own to do this, to have all this bureaucracy. Well, with that mentality, you're not going to be able to grow. You're going to be hurting in the next 3 to 4 years when you hired 3 or 4 people and you can't control them. Can you imagine a school fire drill? No protocol, no policy, no procedure. So clear rules, clear in policy making, clear rules, clear regulations set, and clear guidelines. We have to deal with legislation in our industry. We have to deal with rules. We have to deal with labels. We can't afford to have a guy violate the label and end us up in jail. We have to operate this way. All right. So very, very high level of responsibilities and consequences for not following. In other words, all our vehicles are GPS. There's no speeding. There's no hard braking. There's no rapid accels. You want to keep your job? Do those 3 things when you drive. No texting, no swerving all over the road. We'll put cameras in the vehicles and make sure you're not swerving all over the road. Very clear. No, but that's kind of restrictive. Every warehouse, every store, every retail environment has cameras. Why do you feel that you can't have cameras in a vehicle and you're being spied on? Every single organization, every home that I go to has cameras. And everybody has to follow, including the owners, CEOs, and VPs. You can't exempt yourself. Process. The procedures that must be executed, guys. That's all a process is. Procedures that must be executed. You do A, you show up to the house. You walk around that house. You inspect that house before you apply a chemical. Number 2, you sweep all the windows and eaves. Number 3, you treat all the windows and entry points. Number 4, you apply a granular or a perimeter application. Number 5, you fill out your paperwork on the spot. How hard is that? As those are the 5 steps to doing a service. How many people forget that? Oh, I forgot to do the eaves. Oh, I didn't have time. Oh, they saw you on camera that you didn't do this and you didn't do that. Very easy things to follow. You have to make it easy. Who, what, when, where, and how? How often? Infringement of these is going to cost you your job. You cut a corner. You didn't sweep the windows. You didn't sweep the eaves. You did them sloppy. The customer calls. Why did you do them sloppy? You knew better. No, but we were in a rush. I don't care. That's the problem when you get into 12, 13, 15 accounts a day and you put these quotas on people that they have to get them done, and then you give them a stop that's 45 minutes away. They're going to have to cut a corner somewhere or pay them overtime. Oh, wait. But you're paying them on production. So, if they fall behind, it's their fault. And if you overwhelm them, well, they just need to make it up. Got it. Okay. You got to define all the steps to the procedures. Every step must be clear. And this is very easy to do. But you know what it is? Most of us as entrepreneurs, we don't want to go through that pain of doing that because that makes us accountable. And it makes us, that we're too busy. We're too overwhelmed. We got too many hats to do. You know what? You bite the bullet once. You get it done. Create the manual. Create the HR program. Create it in steps. Take baby steps. Start creating it now. Write down everything that you're doing. Have your wife with you, writing things down as you're doing them, so that you can create a log that can be turned into something actionable later. That's what I had to do. And people are like, no, you should be growing. You should be doing this. You should be doing that. I says, no, I believe in setting foundations. We're growing. We're growing at a manageable rate. So that's what I'm looking at for protocol, policies, and procedures, the 5 P's. You know what, guys? If you get all that in place, the product at the end takes care of itself. It really does. Because you produce a top quality product that becomes the envy of the industry and that people want to emulate. And then what they realize is it can't just be slick marketing. You can't copy my text on the screen and copy everything that we have on our website and call yourself similar to us and do the same thing, because you don't have the infrastructure. You don't have the corporate culture for that created that. That's what you need to worry about, is creating that culture that creates that result. It's a lot of coaching. It's a lot of swallowing, hard and getting things done and biting bullets. Hey guys, I've had a great one. Hey, don't forget, by the way, join the society. We're on Facebook. We have a group. the Facebook, it's Pest Geek Podcast listeners. So all 4 words. Pest Geek Podcast listeners. It's separated so that people can find it easily. We're on the web at pestgeekpodcast.com. That's all together. And, join us. We're also on YouTube. Check out the YouTube. And by the way, if you guys got videos that you want to share, and you want to help for us to help you, in the industry get known and get out there, go ahead and send us your videos. We also got a blog. If you want to contribute to the blog, hey, write a blog post. If write something that's going to help somebody else grow, something that's meaningful, something that touches their hearts, something really cool that nobody else in the world is going to publish for you. And go ahead and send it to us. We'll take care of publishing and distributing. We'll get you the credit that you deserve for it. Go check it out. We've got a couple of them that already wrote. Why am I an ACE? So go ahead and take a look at that. It's on the top of our blog, and why he became an ace. So go ahead and take a look at that on our blog. And guys, I will see you again tomorrow.
Thank you for listening to the Pest Geek Podcast. If you have enjoyed the Pest Geek Podcast, please give us a rating, write a review, or subscribe to the channel. You can join the Pest Geek Society by visiting pestgeekpodcast.com. Thank you for listening. See you next time.